Welcome to Thronecast, the official guide to Game of Thrones from Sky Atlantic HD. We've just watched episode 8, Second Sons, and coming up, we go overseas to talk to Liam Cunningham. He's Ser Davos Seaworth, don't you know? Grace Dent ponders weddings and warriors. Elio and Linda lift the lid on the Second Sons. And we take a look ahead to episode 9. And that's all coming up on this week's Thronecast. Blimey, that was a wedding. Oh, it was awkward. I mean, I've been to some stinkers, but that was something else. We should count ourselves very lucky in real life that we live in the age of the mobile disco. I just feel that a bit of the Grease megamix could have really eased tensions between Tyrion and Joffrey. Oh, and I think this week's episode set a record, and that is the record number of C words in one episode. I counted 17, although admittedly some of those might have been my neighbours. I've got very thin walls. Anyway, to provide a bit of balance and to prove that you don't have to use language to describe womanhood, here's a brand new feature. It's called Gemma Whelan's Polite Alternatives to the C word.
Moo-moo, twinkle, tuppence, fuffa or foof, fanoir, ladies' loolie, front botty, Miriam. What do you call yours?
Also this week, it was a good week for Daenerys fans. And I'm not just talking about bath time, you dirty people. You disgust me. I'm talking about that whole storyline with the Second Sons. I love those guys. And I was so sad to see Miro, their leader, beheaded before we got to know him. Still, hopefully he'll live on in the form of his chat-up lines. Now, here's the guest at the wedding who can always be relied upon to point out that the bride is becoming her own auntie. It's author, journalist and TV analyst Grace Dent. Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm very well. Wasn't that an absolutely amazing episode? I loved that.
It was so good. And what did you think? Like, you've got a good eye for this sort of thing. That fella who went in to negotiate with Daenerys in the bath.
Yeah.
Do you think he's got a touch of the Khal Drogo about him? Do you think there might be something going on there?
I think that you have to take any man's intentions seriously, even romantically, if they turn up with 2 human heads. General rule of thumb when I'm dating.
Never mind milk tray. 2 human heads is the way to go.
If somebody kind of begins by being a bit, I really like you, and then just tips out 2 kind of bleeding heads.
And let's talk about the lovely wedding. The wedding of any girl's dreams.
Oh, wasn't it awful?
Yeah.
But I think that, you know, I think that Sansa seemed to be in quite a strong position when she went in there. I know that she was upset, but I think that her and Tyrion had come to some kind of arrangement that he wasn't going to be... He was certainly not going to be as cruel to her as Joffrey would have been. And I thought it was a lovely moment at the end when he said, you know, I'm never going to force myself on you. Isn't it just completely awkward, though, the whole thing?
Oh, it really is. But, you know, what more romantic thing can you say to a person than, I'm not going to force myself on you? Apart from here are 2 severed human heads. I mean, that's
in the Game of Thrones, this is literally your best-case scenario, that you're not going to be brutally, you know, kind of defiled on your wedding night.
Yeah. That bit with Joffrey was tough as well, wasn't it? When Tyrion sort of forgot himself, really, in front of the whole court. That was a tense moment there.
Yeah, I think that I'd last probably 5 minutes if I was in Westeros. I don't understand how people don't forget themselves with Joffrey all the time, because it does feel like everybody is scared of him, everybody's terrified of him.
And when I was watching the episode, there was one scene that I thought, I know who'll be enjoying this scene. Grace Dent, that's who'll be enjoying it. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I know exactly what you're talking about. You're talking about Marjorie and Cersei having their lovely little chat with
Marjorie greatly overestimated her chances of using her charms on Cersei there.
I loved when Marjorie grabbed Cersei's arm and, like, linked through it, and, like, Cersei kind of, like, reacted a bit like when you try to put, like, a tomcat into a pet carrier. you know, and a cat just kind of, like, tenses all its arms. Wasn't the last line something like, you know, ever call me sister again and I'll have you strangled in your sleep?
Yeah.
And I love that. You know, I thought that this episode was, it was wonderful to watch, but, you know, the second time I watched it, I just listened to the beautiful way that all the, you know, the script had been kind of woven together. Amazing.
Lovely. Grace, thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
Now he's learning to read. He's not budging in his opinion that Melisandre isn't to be trusted. So we sent Annabel Port all the way to Amsterdam to meet Ser Davos Seaworth and the man who makes him tick, Liam Cunningham.
Hello, Liam Cunningham. Welcome to Thronecast.
Yes, I've been waiting to be invited on this.
Oh, it's a pleasure to have you here. You play Davos, of course, also known as the Onion Knight.
Yeah, very glamorous that, isn't it?
Yes. Did you have any nicknames on set?
On set? I'm sure people say things behind my back.
Yeah.
But not to my face.
I should ask someone else, really, what your nickname on set was.
Yeah, if you can use 4-letter words in the show, of course.
So it feels like you spent most of season 3 stuck in a dungeon, which I imagine was quite bleak, really.
It was damp, it was dank, and it was cold, and it was dripping, and it was... we didn't have to use much imagination to make for it to feel miserable. What
lengths do you go to get into character? Do you do things like not wash or clean your teeth for days and then like Davos?
I do that anyway.
Nice. So really, it's just an excuse to be slovenly.
No, listen. He's one of the few characters in the show that has any redeeming features at all, and that's what I love about the show. I mean, the fact that doing the right thing doesn't always get the right results. It's hugely enjoyable because of the questionable morality about the whole thing.
I love a questionable morality.
Yeah, I like a bit of that. I like a bit of that myself. But it's great. It's like, one of my favourite things about the show and the questionable morality, as we say, is for instance Jamie with Brienne when she's about to be raped. All of a sudden, this spark of humanity comes out of Jamie and goes,
started to like
hold on a minute, this is the point, this is my point.
How did that happen?
What does he get as thanks? He gets his arm chopped off. But this is what I love about the show, because when your sympathies and empathy are certainly not with somebody like you've spent 2.5 seasons despising Jamie and loving it because you are hating it, that he does something good and you kind of go, there might be a spark of humanity in that boy. Yeah. Maybe I was wrong. But I presume he'll be up to his whole ways, I'm sure, soon enough.
The dungeon that Davos is in, it's turned out to be some kind of adult education dungeon because he's been learning to read. What is it like pretending to learn to read?
It's really weird.
Yeah.
It's really weird. I think actually in one case my Dublin accent came out because I got so into it. I remember I did this big shout of self-congratulatory shout, but I think it was in a Dublin accent because I'd actually tricked myself into not getting the word and then realising I did get the word, and then I was very excited about myself. So,
but do you think it's going to change Davos becoming literate? Do you think change him as a person?
It's going to be interesting to see what he does. I mean, listen, as I say, illiteracy is not a judgment of whether somebody's intelligent or not. I know many people who've been educated well beyond their intelligence, but with him, I mean, he's incredibly bright. He's a diplomat. He is a diplomat. He's very good at lateral thinking. He's a simple man, but with a sharp mind.
And the show has very dedicated, obsessive fans. Have you got any personal experience of that?
I have just been in Sao Paulo.
Yeah.
And Miami and Rio with the exhibition. Of those that went, they had a little lottery and they took 25 of them, put them on 2 minibuses, didn't tell them where they were going, and brought them round to our hotel. So myself and Alfie were there, Theon, and they brought them in and they lined them up in this terrace, and we went out and said hello to them. Some of them started crying. One girl came over and was standing there and I said, how are you doing, are you okay? And she went... And I had to grab her, photographer grabbed her before she went over. So it's like, you can't, as an actor, you can't take any of this seriously. It's not about you.
It's not.
It's about Westeros and this beautiful product that's been done.
Lovely. Well, thank you very much, Liam Cunningham.
It was a pleasure.
And if you want to see the bits of that interview that we didn't have time to show you, go online, sky.com/Game of Thrones. Now, George R.R. Martin turns to 2 people when he needs to remember the myriad details that he's stuffed his books with. And if they're good enough for George R.R. Martin, they're good enough for us too. Authors of the forthcoming World of Ice and Fire and masters of Westeros.org. It's Elio and Linda. Hello.
Hi, Geoff.
Hi.
Now, here's what I want to ask you about first this week. We've already met the Brotherhood without banners, and now we've got Second Sons. Who are they? Who's this Dario fella?
Yeah, the Second Sons are a company of sellswords, of mercenaries. In the East, they have a lot of these companies because the Free Cities often fight with one another over sort of disputed territory. And rather than, they're kind of effete, rather than sending their own armies, they prefer hiring sellswords to fight for them. The Second Sons are one of these companies. They're very old. And they're not very well regarded presently because of their leaders being having a dark reputation. As to Dario, Dario is, as they say, a lieutenant. He's a Tyroshi sellsword. He believes himself to be the finest swordsman in the world. And I guess he also thinks himself to be the finest lover in the world, although, you know, Podrick may have a fight with him over that one.
And the other thing I wanted to ask you about this week was that ending when we saw Sam attack that White Walker and it just shattered. What was that?
Well, last season he found this cache of old things, including some dragon glass, and this is things that were made by the children of the forest. They didn't use metals, so they worked stone and wood and these things, and they made daggers out of dragon glass, and we know it as obsidian, and the Valyrians, the word that they had for it actually meant frozen fire.
Great. Elio, Linda, thank you so much.
Our pleasure.
Our pleasure.
Bye.
And that's your lot. We'll be back in a fortnight for episode 9. That's right, a fortnight. It's a bank holiday next weekend. And Game of Thrones is already the most expensive programme ever made for television. Just imagine having to pay double bubble for a bank holiday. Anyway, the next episode is called The Reigns of Castamere. Here's a glimpse.
Take his home, take his gold, take his power.
Show them how it feels to lose what they love.
It's no threat. Killing Crozens, what we do.
Castle Black's already under attack.
This is where we enter the city. Or perhaps you lead Grey Worm and me to the slaughter.
I'm gonna put a sword through your eye and out the back of your skull.
Kill him!